Direct from Foxborough, Massachusetts, the gem of Norfolk County, and taped at the studios of Foxborough Cable Access, it's Foxborough Central. And here's your host, Bob Hickey.
And welcome to another fantastic episode of Foxborough Central. I'm your host, Bob Hickey, and I thank you for taking a little bit of time to join with me and my guests as we talk about the events and organizations that truly make Foxborough the gem of Norfolk County. And of course, every year about this time, we have elections, and part of the joy and duty that we have here at Foxborough Central is to bring the questions on the ballot to you, the voters, the listeners, our viewing public, to talk about, cuss, and discuss. So, without any further ado, I would like to introduce my guest, Chris Long. Chris, how are you doing?
Good. How are you, Bob?
I'm doing great. So, if you'll bear with me, folks, everybody, my passion is government. I love government laws. Chris and I met many moons ago. Of course, she's younger than I am, so not so many moons for her, many moons for this guy. And in the JCs, and one of the key sentences of the JC Creed is government should be of laws rather than of men. So I'm a huge law kind of guy. So when we have a ballot question, such as we do on the upcoming November 8th ballot, question 4, which is we'll summarize by saying it is the attempt to legalize recreational use of marijuana in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in allegedly small quantities. I get a little frustrated because I was looking for information. I was trying to follow the discussions. Foxborough Discussion Group is a great one, but there are many out there, many platforms, many forums, many blogs, many newspaper articles that have been written on the topic, and I'm just confused. So I thought, what better way than to get someone who I consider to be an expert on drug awareness, opioid awareness, and who is at least in my opinion, a very strong advocate of information sharing here in Foxborough. So Chris, thank you for that introduction. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I'm going to say right up front that we know that Chris is a advocate of not legalizing the recreational use of marijuana, correct? So we're going to put that on the table right now. I'm also going to say that my impetus is an honest one. So I'm going to start by reading the ballot question. So everybody, follow along with me at home if you have this up on your webpage. Question 4, the purpose of this act is to control the production and distribution of marijuana under a system that licenses, regulates, and taxes the businesses involved in a manner similar to alcohol, and to make marijuana legal for adults 21 years of age or older. Don't shake your head, I see you doing that. Its intent is to remove the production and distribution of marijuana from the illicit market and to prevent the sale of marijuana to persons under 21 years of age by providing for a regulated and taxed distribution system. To the fullest extent possible, its terms are being interpreted in accordance with the purpose and intent set forth in this section. Here's the problem. It goes on for 25 more pages, and there's no way that that's going to be on a ballot question. And additionally, even if this is posted at the polling places, which by law it will be, 1 or 2 on the wall is definitely not going to give us the opportunity to read it at the site and understand all of the nuances. So the Commonwealth has put out also an advisory page that is referenced off of mass.gov, and it says that it is similar to laws currently on the books in Colorado, the District of Columbia, and a couple of other states. So I started looking at that, and I got a little confused further because, frankly, I don't know what the laws in the Commonwealth and the District of Columbia are, and what I've heard of the Colorado law has some distinct ups and downs to it. So again, that's what prompted me to reach out to Chris. So again, thank you so much for coming in. I'm going to take this, I'm going to turn it off, I'm going to get rid of it because frankly, I don't understand it. Can you share with me in 28 minutes or less what this law is all about? First of all, what is the proposal on the ballot?
It's just to legalize it. It's been decriminalized, and now they want to legalize it.
So it's been decriminalized, which has already been done.
Right.
And also the medical marijuana distributors are out there, and that's nothing to do with this.
Well, it isn't right now. But what could happen if this changes is the medical marijuana dispensaries will be able to open up as recreational as well as grow facilities.
So the law that was passed in many of the towns maybe didn't embrace, but certainly accepted and dealt with in compliance with the law as far as designating locations that could be used for dispensaries, and then also licensing, or at least giving, I believe the statute is written that the local governing board has to give approval to the state application. And that was done under the old laws, but under the terms of the new ballot initiative, that could be thrown out the window, or at least drastically amended.
Under the new one, the city and town government control is lost. Question 4 makes each of our 351 towns, cities and towns, to participate, unlike current legal marijuana states who have to opt in. It sets no limits on the number of marijuana producers, sellers that could open in Massachusetts. Unlike states who have legalized, all Massachusetts cities, towns would have no fewer than 20% of their liquor stores. To take back control, individual city and towns would have to petition and then vote in the next state election in 2018 to opt out.
So by passing the ballot initiative, everybody is automatically in, and then voters have to go and actually get out of this system.
Right, but they won't be able to do that until 2018. So
after
by then,
a year has passed by, which everybody will be able to be established.
Right.
So I've got a question. It said in the paragraph that I read that it would be similar to the state alcohol system, where there are licenses and packies and sellers, distributors that are licensed. However, isn't there also a component in here about recreational users and how an individual can actually legally grow a certain amount of marijuana on their own, which seems as though it's counter to what the law says, because I certainly can't set up a gin still and produce X amount of whiskey in my basement and then go out and sell it and give it away. So I'm not understanding this at all.
So the home grow and giving away. Question 4 lets anybody grow and give away marijuana concentrates. Home growing and giving away is not taxed, so does not produce any revenue for the state. It is not regulated, as the title of the ballot suggests. Home growing allows 12 marijuana plants per household. 12. With no restrictions on proximity to schools, public space, etc. Which is like if you live in an apartment building and you have kids and your neighbor is growing 12 marijuana plants, can you imagine the traffic that's going to be going in and out of that apartment?
So wait a second. So with this law, and already marijuana, certain amounts of marijuana possession have been decriminalized. And do you know what that is off the top of your head?
It's just under a gram, I believe.
Just under a gram. So how many joints is a gram?
Excuse me, 1 ounce of marijuana is 40 to 60 joints.
Okay.
So it's an ounce, under an ounce.
So a gram would be under an ounce?
No.
No?
Yes, it gets confusing. The grams and the ounces get confusing.
I'm glad I'm not the only one confused. So let's work on this.
So you can have under an ounce before you get arrested.
Okay. So if an ounce is, we'll call it 30 joints, and for the sake of being conservative, because I'm a conservative guy, we'll call it even 10. Okay? Let's say 10, which is, I know you're laughing because I'm going way under, but let's call it 10 joints. Mm-hmm. And how many ounces can a single cannabis plant produce of marijuana joints?
I don't know exactly how many grams a plant. I know that.
I'm just talking generally speaking.
I know that each plant can generate up to a $5,000 revenue.
So $5,000 worth of revenue off of one plant, and if the law stipulates you're allowed to grow 12 residentially, that's unregulated and untaxed. So we're really talking a $60,000 potential. And of course, if all these plants come flooding the market, perhaps the price goes down. So yeah, we get that. But we're just talking about today's snapshot in time.
Well, home growing and giving away encourages the continuation of the black market as well.
Well, of course, but again, we're just going on the letter of the law here. So if that is the case, how is the Commonwealth regulating it similar to the alcohol? And I'm asking this as a legitimate question.
They're not. They can't.
Okay.
So it's unregulated.
So for the recreational user or for the person on the street corner buying it or able to go into someone's house to buy it, there's still that lack of control. But it's decriminalized, so we're actually encouraging home growth of marijuana plants. Okay, so let's move on to number 2. I think there's, 4 talking points?
There's,
and again,
yeah,
this is
4
so
major problems with question 4.
This is so confusing to me. I asked Chris, and she was so grateful on my part for her to come in to really put it into 4 talking points. So what's the second one?
So impaired driving. So question 4 concerns about consequences of increased drug driving. It's difficult to detect OUI in marijuana because there's no breathalyzer test. And no limit of impairment. Massachusetts currently has weak OUI penalties. In Colorado, there has been a 62% increase in marijuana-related traffic deaths.
Which is interesting because the state ballot references the California laws that are currently on the books, at least from the information put out by the Commonwealth. So let's take Colorado as a great example. You're saying 62% increase in deaths where marijuana has been shown to be a factor in the accident. I think I worded that correctly. So the driver has been impaired to a certain degree. It's unable to tell what because, again, there's no real test for impairment as opposed to an alcohol blood level content. So it's an unknown, but 62% increase.
Correct.
That's pretty telling.
The number of traffic deaths due to marijuana impaired drivers doubled in a year in Washington after it was legalized.
The argument goes, though, that there's absolutely no connection, but clearly we have a connection.
Right.
I hate statistics.
I mean, Colorado has told Massachusetts to please wait, that they made a mistake, that they didn't know enough about it, and to wait until these, bumps in the road are kind of ironed out and people figure it out, that the question's not 25 pages long with lots of loopholes.
Loopholes. So let's talk about loopholes. Is there a third point that
there's a fourth
addresses
one.
loopholes by any chance?
So edibles.
I knew there was a loophole.
Yep, so edibles.
Edibles meaning, hang on. So smoking marijuana in a joint is the way we traditionally think about it.
Correct.
But edibles would be, say, baking it into brownies making it
gummy
into
bears,
an oil, gummy
oils.
bear. Okay.
Yep.
Gummy bears, really?
Yeah. So they have like this whole brand of candy. They have lollipops and gummy bears, and they have sodas, and
really?
Yeah. So think about this one. You're sitting in a classroom, and little Johnny's got a bag of gummy bears. Are they Mommy's gummy bears or are they Johnny's gummy bears? It's kind of scary.
But wait, if you're under 21, then you're not allowed to have it, according to the law.
Right. But they look exactly alike and can be easily mistaken.
And there's no test to be able to determine.
No, there is no test to be determined unless you look at the ingredients.
But everybody's going to follow the law.
Right.
Oh, wait a second. Nobody's following the law now. So. Okay, never mind.
I can't find the statistic right now, but in Colorado, they have seen an increase on, they're not necessarily overdoses, but they're ingestion illnesses from young children. They've seen a high increase where they had never had them from marijuana ingestion to now they have them.
It's an interesting point, and one I just thought of now, where we had an incident last year where a local local athlete had ingested some synthetic marijuana and ended up with some issues at our public safety building. So if that's an adult,
That's stuff you can buy in the market that's right across from where he lives.
Really?
Yeah.
So the real question is this an issue that can be regulated, and is this truly an effort to meet public need, and I'm probably asking a rhetorical question, I have my own opinion on it, but is this truly an effort to meet a public need, or is this more a way of the Commonwealth to generate an additional tax revenue stream, but poorly constructed?
So
what do you think?
Money. It does not. Let's see.
Because the way the first paragraph read is it would be done exactly the way and regulated and taxed that the state controls alcoholic beverages. That's the way I read the first paragraph.
Right.
I know there's another 25 pages that tries to clarify what I read. But
so this goes to one of the myths. So legalizing marijuana will solve the government's budgetary problem. Is that basically what you're asking?
Yes.
In a nutshell? So society gains about $15 to $20 billion a year from the taxes imposed on alcohol, while it loses over $200 billion a year in healthcare, criminal justice, and other costs directly related to alcohol use and abuse. That's a ratio of 10 to 1 or higher of cost to revenue. Tobacco is hardly better. The $25 billion collected in tobacco taxes does not even come close to the offsetting of the more than $2 billion in loss in social costs from tobacco use. There's no studies right now that they can really say, but they know that we're not going to get any money out of
So the question,
legalizing.
I suppose, comes from a standpoint, and for folks who know me, know I grew up in Virginia, and a huge tobacco growing country down there. In fact, when a road was paved, there was a huge sign that went up saying, your highways improved due to the courtesy of the nation's cigarette tax dollars. So we definitely knew where our revenue came from. So with the push to demonize cigarettes and to essentially shame people to stop smoking, which, by the way, I support. I think it's a horrible habit, and that's not something that I advocate. I'm curious to know how we don't marry more closely the sins of tobacco, which, while it has an enjoyable effect, doesn't have the
THC.
alleged, exactly. But the nicotine also has a stimulating effect. But ingesting cigarettes into the system, how can we not say the same thing about marijuana? Because we're still ingesting smoke and ingesting presumably chemicals. I've not known of many cigarette manufacturers who make organic tobacco. And so with marijuana, I'm sure that there's going to be at some point, maturation of the system to where there's additives, or there are already additives.
Well, there already is. There's already, I don't know the exact chemical.
It's probably good that we don't know.
Yeah. I just know that in the past, the marijuana that others smoked in the days only had, wait a minute, you caught me off guard.
Well, we all have stories, perhaps anecdotal, perhaps not, of marijuana joints being laced with things like PCP.
Right.
And so I always looked with caution on anything that I couldn't open up a bottle top to that I knew hadn't been messed with.
Yep. Right. Well, so marijuana is harmless and non-addictive. In many classes, marijuana in the 1980s and 1990s averaged just 4% of THC. A number of samples now range from more than 20% of THC. Back in the 80s and 90s, people usually smoked a joint, which contained 0.25 grams of marijuana. Now, everyone smokes a blunt. Do you know what a blunt is?
No.
Okay, so a blunt is a rolled cigar.
Okay.
Which is averaging close to 1 full gram of marijuana.
Oh, we used to call it a fatty, right?
Okay,
So it's now called a blunt. Okay.
Smoking,
Hey, I'm being educated tonight. This is great.
Smoking one blunt today at 20% of THC is like smoking 16 old school joints at once.
So the product is more powerful.
It's much more powerful.
It's not your grandfather's marijuana.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So it's kind of like what's going on the streets right now with the heroin. Fentanyl. And then now we have carfentanil, which is 1,000 times stronger than fentanyl. It's elephant tranquilizer. But that's just another whole topic.
Yes.
Yeah.
So many people have called marijuana Chris Long, and I'm here again with Chris Long, who has been kind enough to join me to have just a roundtable discussion about question 4, the state initiative to legalize the recreational use and residential growth of marijuana in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So one of the myths that supporters have claimed to have debunked is that marijuana is a gateway drug. And I got to tell you, I'm not sure that that's not true. And what are your thoughts on that?
So it's not as addictive as like tobacco or heroin, but its addiction rate is 1 in every 11 adults who have ever tried it, or 1 in 6 adolescents who have ever used it.
So what we're saying is that the Commonwealth is telling us that it's okay to have this because only 1 out of 6 kids are going to become addicted.
Correct. Which
I'm not sure what to say about that.
Well,
I don't know if anything needs to be said. That's a pretty impressive
statistic. Yeah, it's scary. It's really scary because when you go from marijuana, then that's, you don't want to say gateway, but that's just, they're going to be shooting for the next high.
So actually, Chris, though, this law is going to outlaw it for anybody under the age of 21. So clearly that's not going to be an issue.
Right.
But
right.
wait a second, it's already against the law for people under 21.
Correct.
And over 21, by the way, to have excessive amounts. So I'm still unclear as to how this law is going to address that issue, other than make it easier
It's
to
not,
access, because residentially we're now allowed to grow it up to 12 plants.
You're allowed to grow it. You're allowed to give it away.
Can I sell it?
You can sell it. You have to get a special license, but yeah, you can sell it.
So I can grow in my basement on Baker Street 12 marijuana plants per household. Mm-hmm. Okay. And since my house is technically zoned as a dual household, maybe I could get away with 24. We'll just go with the 12 for now. So I could do that, and then I could apply for the state to get a permit to sell legally.
To be a grower.
So if I were to do that and I were to become a grower, who would I have to apply to? According to this law, it's a state permit, correct?
I believe so, yeah.
So what regulation from the town? Would I have to go before the Board of Selectmen and get permission? Would I have to go before the Board of Health?
No. According to this,
And what about the planning board?
According to this law, the town government loses its voice.
So I can grow marijuana in my basement or in my house, and there's nothing the town or my neighbors can say about it? That's pretty cool.
Yep, and if you're 21, you'll be able to smoke it. And if you live in an apartment, there's nothing you can do.
And I can also give it away.
And you can also give it away.
To my friends.
To little Johnny next door.
And there's no regulation as far as school zones or zoning or anything.
No.
Because that's the way the law is written.
Correct.
And it's found within those 25 pages
Correct.
of lawyer speak.
Correct.
That's pretty impressive. Are there any other myths that I'm missing here, Chris? Or
Let's see. Impact on local communities.
by the way, folks on Baker Street, be rest assured I'm not planning on growing any marijuana plants in my basement. That's not going to happen. I hope you don't either.
How about controlled marijuana-infused products? So marijuana-infused products came...
Again, baking it, making it into gummy
Well,
bears.
it came with medical marijuana. So you can get medical marijuana. You can get the gummy bears
Which
under
is
the medical
currently- right.
But it's with your medical marijuana card,
Right.
which is pretty also easy to obtain, but we won't go there. So let's see. Most common citizens don't realize it yet. Less people are smoking weed and are now using concentrate, oils, shattered dabs, 90% THC. So it's 90% THC. They draw the oils out. And actually people have house fires and stuff like that because it's a process and it's very dangerous. But that's something else. The marijuana-infused products. We cannot control marijuana-infused products as the THC levels vary in products as well as the effects on individuals, and there's no control on them.
I'm not sure what to say about that either. So, by interpretation, this law is going to, I don't want to say encourage, but certainly take away any reason to not
do it.
Not do it, because frankly, the police will be held powerless for any grower that has less than 12 or less plants on their premises. Mm-hmm. And so the police department will not have the power any longer to enforce the federal drug laws, because the Commonwealth of Massachusetts will have made laws that defy local control as far as regulation and local control as far as law enforcement.
Yep. Our
Seems
hands
like
will
a
be
pretty
tied.
impressive piece of legislation to me.
Yeah. Yeah, our hands will be tied.
So we are close to running out of time, but I wanted to touch upon so many things with you. I would say that there's a website that does have more information on this, and it's called www.safeandhealthyma.com. Perhaps you'll see it on your screen. S-A-F-E, safe, and A-N-D, healthy, HEALTHYMA.com. You can also tweet them at safehealthyma. So there you go.
Right.
There's information out there. There's also information at www.mass.gov. All the questions are out there. It's written out in verbatim. I encourage everybody to educate yourself, whether you're pro or con. The important piece of this is information. And that's why, again, I'm so grateful to Chris Long for coming out here to share tonight, because I think there's just a lack of true information. So I feel as though I've learned some things. I want to learn one more thing from you, though. But I hope, folks, that you'll really take this one to heart and go out and vote on November 8th. Your vote is important. Every vote counts. And yes, it's a national election, President, and we have great people running for our state legislature who deserve your support. But these 4 ballot questions, particularly question 4, pretty important to our future and our children's future. So, Chris, as we get back to the topic, what are your thoughts on it, really, as far as where this would lead to? How about for the dispensaries? You mentioned at the beginning of the program that they would now be allowed to expand beyond the
Recreation. They'll
allegedly
be able to go to recreational.
narrow parameters they have now as far as being city and town regulated and focused on medical marijuana distributorship.
Right.
Let's talk about that.
So if you have a medical marijuana facility, typically you can't get in without a medical marijuana card. Mm-hmm. So now, if it's legalized, if you're 21 or older, you can go in and you can get anything you want. So
it becomes a pot shop.
It's a pot shop.
So all across our Commonwealth, the facilities that were licensed now become head shops.
Correct.
And you're able
and
to...
grows, and they can become grows. And
what does that mean?
They can grow their own marijuana. They can have their own grow, and there's a different number. They get to have
because
more.
They're not residential, they're
Correct.
considered to be
I don't know
growers.
what that number is.
And they can become licensed from the state, and that would be allegedly taxed, and that's where the revenue stream would come from.
Yes and no, because the tax is very, very
low. I
low.
love yeses and nos.
Yeah, I don't know the exact percentage. I don't think. Okay, so set tax rate is very low, meaning little or no net revenue to benefit.
Well, we all know the Commonwealth, and they'll certainly tax. So I'm not worried about them getting their tax money off of what they can legally find. But
Right.
I'm just more
Right.
concerned about the residential piece.
Right.
But also for the towns that bought into this, and for the people that voted in favor of the medical marijuana. Maybe they didn't realize that this was going to be the next shoe. So it's one of those camel's noses under the tent type scenarios.
Absolutely.
And so people should really be aware of this.
Yep. I think it's really important that we wait and let other states feel it out and see how and wait for them to make for the changes, because Colorado, has said, please wait. We made a mistake.
I'm going to give you the last word in just a second. Again, I've really enjoyed having a chance to talk roundtable style with Chris Long, who is a longtime Foxborough resident and proponent of opioid awareness. And so she is my resident expert on drug awareness, and I really thank her for coming in. Just so you know, it's on question 4. November 8th is Tuesday. Come out and vote. It is very important that you do so. One way or the other, your vote should be counted and heard. So glad to have you in here, Chris. And as we leave people, you can go find out more information at www.mass.gov or go to www.safeandhealthyma.com for information. 25 pages of text. There's no way I could have gotten through it. Thank you for coming out.
My
If
pleasure.
you were to give me those 25 pages, one summary, granted I know your opinion, but give me your opinion and hit me with the information.
There's a lot of loopholes and there's a lot of misunderstandings that are within those 25 pages, and I just ask you to educate yourself. Take the time to ask questions. Take the time to go through the 25 pages and then ask questions.
Well said, well stated, and I hope you've heard. On behalf of all the volunteers here at Foxborough Cable Access, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I hope you've learned a little something and will become more informed on question 4. I would like to thank my volunteers, the wonderful Betty Travers, the phenomenal Deb Storrs, the fantastic Paul Beck, as well as Jillian Larson and Lauren Batar, who make this possible, and Michael Weber, who leads our Mary Brigade. I am Bob Hickey, your host, and I look forward to seeing you next time right here on Foxborough Central. Take care, everybody.